Today, I am joined by the amazing Eben Pagan.
It's great to be here, Marci.
What do you think kind of most put you into that flow of life where it just started clicking for you?
And I started to realize, I'm like, maybe I've learned everything there is to learn. And then I got married.
What would you say is your number one advice to helping coaches build their businesses?
Okay, so I'm willing to fail on stage. So first, take the mindset that you're just going to get out there and try some new things. But then to answer your question a little more directly, the thing that has led to the most success in life for me is
you aren't meant to struggle your way through life. You are meant to live in the miracle zone. Hi, I'm Marci Shimoff. I'm the #1 New York Times bestselling author, a featured teacher in The Secret, and founder of the global program, Your Year of Miracles. And I have spent my life exploring the real source of happiness, success, and miracles. And here's what I've learned. When you align with the energy of the miraculous, life gets a whole lot easier and a whole lot more fun. And in this podcast, you can expect some jaw-dropping stories, some science-backed tools, and some heart-opening wisdom to help you tap into the flow of synchronicities, joy, and grace. And it is my heartfelt intention that we have a fabulous time together. So welcome to Living in the Miracle Zone. And today I am joined by the amazing and brilliant Eben Pagan. Eben, thank you so much for being here with me.
it's great to be here, Marci. Thank you for inviting me.
Well, I have been so looking forward to this. Let me tell everybody a little bit about you, and then we want to just dive in. So Eben is a devoted husband and father. He's an investor, he's an art collector, he's a teacher, and he's a coach. He started his online business in 2001 from his bedroom with just a computer, selling a book of dating advice, and he has built his company he at the time built his company to 80 full-time employees, and at the time 30 million in sales, 100% virtually. And then in 2007, Eben offered his first course on how to grow a business to the $10 million per year level. It was called Altitude. And Eben he teaches his programs online on coaching, on personal growth, and on romantic relationships with his beautiful partner in life, Annie Lala. And I got to meet Eben and Annie in person last summer when we were celebrating a mutual dear friend's 50th birthday party, Claire Zammit. And Eben, I have known about you for years because you are really the creator of what it is that we all do in this industry now. You are the first guy out there doing this. So you were my hero from afar for decades. But when I met you, I've got to say, you were more brilliant and more remarkable than I imagined. You are one of those total genius, out of the box thinking human beings that has, more hours in a day than most of us have in a week. You just have this energy to get everything done. And I love your true, sincere heart of wanting to just make life better for everybody. So you had me at hello.
Thank you, Marci. Very, very gracious. I really appreciate it.
So I want to know, Eben, I don't know that much about your life before you started doing all of this. I'm going to assume that you didn't always live this kind of miraculous life that you now live. Can you tell us a little bit about what your life was like before living a miraculous life, and then what shifted it and what it's like now?
Yeah. Well, I got to be born. So that's a pretty big deal,
Yeah, you won the miracle lottery on that one, as did we all.
Holy cow, right? So I got to be born. Yeah, I had these really interesting kind of outside the box hippie parents. I was born in New York. They moved with me to the backwoods of Oregon. So I literally grew up backwoods, farm, almost farm, and they never really figured out, the business and financial kind of world at all. So I grew up, we were on welfare and food stamps and all that kind of thing. And in my teenage years, kind of late teenage years, I was a rock and roll guitar player. I went on tour as a long-haired rock and roll, heavy metal guitar player. I worked in a metal shop. Yeah, I've done a bunch of things. And then in my 20s, I I was a broke artist, musician, and I decided that I needed to go and figure out business because I wanted to have nicer things. And, making $75 a week as a guitar player wasn't paying the bills. And so, a sequence of mishaps and adventures led me to being a coach and teaching, and basically living the lifestyle of learning and then teaching, like learning an area and then teaching. And, for the last 20 or 25 years, that's what I've done. Is every few years I go learn an area of life and I explore it and try to understand it, whether that be relationships or productivity or business or investing or whatever the area is. And then once I understand it, I try to integrate it into my life. And then I start teaching what I've learned. And then I just keep trying to put all of those things together to help other people have lives that work.
What would you say? I mean, you've done it so amazingly well. I mean, truly, like at a level that most people in the world have never seen. What do you think kind of most put you into that flow of life where it just started clicking for you?
I have this sense that there's always more to learn. My definition of humility is just simply knowing that I don't know. I mean, this is it's an ancient philosophical idea, but right, if there's something that I know, it's that I just don't know everything. And so the more I learn, the more I realize that there is out there to learn. And yeah, so I just kind of keep going. I remember when I was in my 30s, Marci, I remember I was reading a lot of like evolutionary psychology, and kind of I was learning about investing and learning about business and marketing, and I was reading a lot of business books, and something started happening, which is I started seeing the same ideas in the different books that I was reading. I'd read about this idea over here in this psychology book, and then I'd read about it in this business book. And I started to realize, I'm like, maybe I've learned everything there is to learn. And then I got married, had a kid, and realized, no, there's yet still more. And so there was a little blip for a minute where I thought maybe I've learned everything. But other than that, I always have this sense that I really don't know what's going on. And I just have to keep learning and keep going. And I just keep discovering, like, you can go into any new area. There are so many wonderful domains that humans have explored, and you can just learn. There's all this knowledge and all these geniuses and experts. And, it's an endless adventure.
So I'm curious your take on this, because there are a lot of people that know a lot, who have learned a lot, and they aren't living what I would consider to be a miraculous life.
Yeah.
So what do you think is the distinction between learning and knowing a lot and actually living a miraculous life?
Well, I mean, the etymology of miracle is wonder, right? It starts out with, living in wonder and being, I think, open to the mystery and having things happen that you just say, wow, what just happened there? And, being able to be in awe of life and of experience. And I also think that this is a part of humility as well. Another way of looking at miracles is that they are synchronicities, right? So Jung talked about these coincidences that we have, and they're meaningless to anybody else, but to you, it has this like special meaning. And I like looking at things through lots of different lenses. I like seeing things as potentially being miraculous. And I also like looking at, I'm a pretty rational, pragmatic, materialist, pretty hard-nosed kind of person. And I went through a whole phase of my life where, I just didn't believe in anything beyond what we kind of see here. But then the more I lived my life and the more I had experiences, the more I just said, there's just so much more happening than we can see. And then at some point I just realized there's way more happening that I cannot see and cannot perceive than I can see and I can perceive. And I just need to be open to things happening on all different levels of reality. Now, I certainly think that a lot of people are out there in super woo-woo land, and they're talking crazy, but man, there's something to it. I've developed what I now consider to be, I call it a rational faith. I have faith in things, including my relationship and things in the future. and I have a really strong faith in them, and there's rationality to back it up at the same time. And that is just the way I choose to live my life. I
Well,
don't
it
usually get
seems
to talk miracles with many people. So, like, it's fun to
I'm
jam a little
loving
bit
you're
here.
talking about it. But your rationality is actually based in experience.
Yeah.
It seems it's based in
Yeah.
your own experience of ways in which life has opened up for you.
Yeah. I mean, again, back to the synchronicity thing, right? So, famous story, Carl Jung was analyzing a patient, and they were in wherever they were, Switzerland or something, and, in a pretty northern latitude. And they couldn't, like, the patient was just stuck, and
Mm-hmm.
they just couldn't have a breakthrough, and they couldn't have a breakthrough. And the patient came in and started talking about a dream that they had. And in the dream was a scarab beetle. And then right at that moment, they heard a knocking on the window, and he went over to the window and he opened it up, and it was a scarab beetle, and it was banging on the window, and it flew in and landed. And there were no scarab beetles around this part of the world, and so the patient was like, oh my, and then that was it. There was like some breakthrough that happened. And so recognizing coincidences that are meaningful and then following them, there's something here, again, whether you take a kind of a divine kind of intervention perspective on it,
Mm-hmm.
or just well, it's your subconscious or unconscious connecting things that hadn't been connected. And then now this opens up a new kind of pathway. I think we have to be open to these things.
Mm-hmm. Can you think of an example of something that's happened in your own life that you would consider a synchronicity or coincidence that maybe, I mean, maybe even meeting your wife, I don't know. I don't know that story actually.
Absolutely. I mean, meeting my wife, for sure. It's funny. They happen so much that I don't even make note. I used to write them down because it was crazy. And sometimes I'd have like these triple synchronicities or 3 or 4 things. And I'd go, that's just absolutely nuts. But no, they happen so often that I just kind of, in fact, I use the occurrence of them to kind of tell me whether I'm like living in harmony with myself or not. It's like when I
Yes.
notice them, if that makes sense.
Yes.
I read about this mathematician. He figured out, he said, so many things happen every day that a coincidence of 2 things happening is actually not that big a deal. And he did the math and he said, a 1 in a million thing will actually happen in your life about once a month. So it's actually not about it happening. It's about you just recognizing,
Noticing it.
you got to notice it.
Yeah. We actually encourage people to keep a journal, a miracles journal.
Totally.
So that they are because what we put our attention on is what grows stronger in our lives. We get more of it. So noticing it. And it's interesting that you said that you used to write them down. Now they happen so often, but it was because you started noticing them that they happen
absolutely.
so often. And I think that that's a really cool thing for people to start doing, just noticing, wow, there's some cool things that happen in my life that are synchronicities that, are kind of beyond maybe what my own willpower would have put together.
Yeah.
I think that also, though, a lot of people live in fear. Fear kind of blocks them from living more in that place of curiosity and awe and all of that. How have you dealt with fear so that you open up to, okay, I'm going to learn something new. I'm going to start this new business. I'm going to start this new venture. Most people are already so afraid of what could potentially go wrong. What do you do differently that
Well, okay. So 2 things. One, I want to tell you about a synchronicity that happened recently because I hadn't really been thinking about it before this conversation. And because again, they happen really often in my life. So a few weeks ago, actually about a month, maybe 5 weeks ago, I had kind of gotten to this place. I was talking to my wife, Annie, who about how, COVID stopped us from doing events, right? Everyone went inside and we kind of stopped doing them. And then we kind of started coming back out and doing them. And over the last year, we've done a few more like boutique kind of small events, and they've been amazing. And so we've been talking about it again. And I was saying, we really need to start doing more events. We need to start doing more in-person stuff. And I'm feeling like, we're a little behind. And, I kind of want to catch back up. And literally right then, a friend of mine reached out to me and he said, hey, would you help me? I'm working on a sales letter for this program that I'm doing. And I was like, sure. And so I, called him back and we started diving into it. And I realized this guy's been a friend for several years and I didn't even know that he knew this. And he's telling me I'm doing this event in a few weeks and it's all about how to do really kind of boutique, high-end, small events and do really high-end offers at these events. And he called me out of the blue to help him with it. And within a few days or so, I said, well, I should come and do this event with you. I should help you do it. And then it was like the coincidence, you know what I'm saying? It was just
Yes.
like, it was like perfect. And then we just did the event the other day and it was a really amazing event and so forth. So yes, these kinds of things do happen regularly to me. Now let's talk about fear. In fact, if you look at life itself, right, the way evolution works is evolution tries lots of stuff and it just keeps the winners. Like that's it. If you talk to artists, artists make lots and lots of sketches and then one of them really sticks and they're like, yeah, this. If you talk to musicians who write songs, right, they also make sketches. They put ideas together. If you talk to people in business, they do tests of marketing, and then they find the winners or they do, create products. Or you get 100 customers or clients into your business. Well, 10 or 20 of those clients and customers will come and keep buying stuff with you and they'll be worth a lot more than the others. And so the way reality works is I like to think of it as like value clusters itself in locations. It's like gold mine. If you have a mountain and let's say it's a very rich gold mine, it's not like the mountain is made out of gold. There's these little veins in that mountain and you've got to go dig and dig and dig. And most of the places you dig, even in that mountain, there won't be any gold. But then once you find the vein, then it's important to kind of keep going. And so in life, most things don't work out the way that you want them to, particularly most new things, most experiments or most new relationships or most right things that you kind of like try a new product or service or something like this. It just doesn't work out. But that's okay because if you keep trying new things, you'll stumble upon one once in a while, 1 out of 5, 1 out of 10 that goes really well, and many of them are happy accidents. And then you say, let's follow that. And so when it comes to the fear, the way that I deal with it because for me, I'm actually a pretty lazy person by nature. It's probably weird to say that or to hear that because most people perceive me as being pretty productive.
Like ultra uber productive. So I'm loving you're saying this.
So what I do is I basically just trick myself into taking action. I make commitments to do things and then I tell a bunch of people that I'm going to do the thing. And then I tell my audience I'm going to do the thing and my wife I'm going to do the thing and my team. And then I have to show up and do it. And then it forces me to be productive, And so I guess the way I would say it is I put conditions and rituals and relationships in place in my life that force me to keep showing up, to keep trying new things, to keep experimenting, to keep learning new things, and to keep seeking new opportunities so that I can keep finding new pathways forward.
You know what I really want to appreciate about what you just also said is that you hold things a little lightly. Like you come into, it sounds as though you come into new ideas without a feeling of this has to work, this has to work, this has to work, because you're going to maybe try 10 things.
Yeah.
And one of those is going to be the one that's going to be the click. So it's not
Yes.
that everything has to be working. I think a lot of people have this very strong attachment to this has to work this way.
Yes.
Whereas you come in with this open attitude of, I'm not sure what's going to work. I go in with wonder, curiosity, and then I'm in awe and surprised by it. And
Exactly.
that is such a different perspective than what most people have. And it's really, especially as it relates to business, tell us a little bit about how that perspective has helped you in your business.
Well, this is part of this thing that I'm kind of referring to as rational faith,
Mm-hmm.
right? So it's rational because I know that most of the things that I try, again, particularly new things that are kind of experimental, I know that most of them won't work out exactly the way I want them to. But I have faith that if I keep trying new things, that one of them will work at some point. And it's probably not the one that I think is going to work. That's the weird trick that life plays on us. Um, I love talking about this in marketing. When I teach marketing, I say you have to experiment. You have to try an ad. You have to try a marketing piece. You have to try a piece of content or what the word is on the link that you click. You have to test all these different things. And through the years, even as I've gotten really good at this stuff, the thing that I think is going to win usually doesn't. And the thing that I thought, no, that's probably not going to work, often does. And so if, it's the cliche is Edison working on the light bulb.
Yes.
He sat there with all the different filament ideas and most of them didn't work. And, somebody showed up and said, hey, you've just tried 1,000 different ways, you failed 1,000 times, and he said, no, I've successfully found 1,000 different things that don't work as a light bulb filament kind of thing. And I think you have to just take that approach toward life is you have to get that there are certain doors that will open, but they won't until you go and knock on them.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to be willing to knock on a lot of doors, and you have to get good at not taking it personally if things don't work out the way that you'd like.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, I don't know how deep down this rabbit hole you want to go, but I've thought about this particular thing a lot. And I think I could give, if you want to just do a couple of minutes.
Yes, I do. Insight. And I'm really glad you shared the Edison thing because I was about to, so I'm glad you shared that. Yes.
Okay, great. Okay, so here's my basic thesis on why this is all happening to us and why we're so afraid of failure and why we're so unwilling to try new things. And it goes like this. So for thousands of years now, we've all lived in a world where we were born, we learned a skill or a trade or a profession, and then we did it for the rest of our lives. And that was it. You learned one thing, and oftentimes it was what your parents, your grandparents, your family did for generations, like you were a blacksmith or, whatever. You learned to be an accountant or a dentist or something, and you just learned it, and then you did it for the rest of your life. And that's really beneficial because over thousands of years, we humans have explored all of these different domains. Okay, we've explored the physical domain. We've learned about literally like physics and geology, and we've learned about metallurgy and so forth. And we've explored the emotional and social domain, and we've learned about psychology and relationships. And we've explored the intellectual domain, and we've learned about math and, all these incredible theoretical domains that we've explored now. But what that's done is it's been this explosion of knowledge. So we wound up with all these specialties. And so anyone that's been born in the last, let's say 100 years, you were born, you went to school, you got kind of a general education. You learned history and math and, how to read and write and that kind of thing. And then as you were going through school, you kind of identified, oh, I seem to be pretty good at this thing. Like, I'm pretty good with my hands. And then you go and you learn to be a mechanic, or, I'm really good at designing things, and you learn to be an architect or whatever. You find, you get into be a doctor or an attorney or an accountant or whatever the thing is. And then you find yourself there, and then you go and you study it, you get some kind of vocational training, or you get a degree, and then you spend years, coming up and training there, and you go, okay, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. And you learn everything that people have been figuring out for thousands of years. And there's a right way to do it. And there's a procedure for handling everything. Like if you go and learn to be an accountant, they teach you how to do everything. You learn about double entry bookkeeping, and you learn about gap principles, and you learn all this stuff, and there's laws and so forth. And so we all come from a world where everything's basically been figured out. You just need to go learn it and then do the procedure and not screw up. And as a result, most of us are way more successful than our ancestors. Up until 100 years ago, everybody just lived in abject poverty, and very, very few, had anything to their name. And also everyone was illiterate. Well, now we're all mostly literate. We're unbelievably successful by, world standards. But what's also happened is because we learned the right way to do it, and because there was one way and it was right, and there were all these procedures, it made us very reluctant to try new things, because most of the things that we do work. When we go to work, everything works. Our job works. The double entry bookkeeping thing works. As a doctor, I prescribe the thing and it works, because everybody, we're standing on the shoulders of all these giants. But when it comes to trying new things in life, exploring new relationships, or starting a new business, or, trying something new personally that feels risky, we're actually, we're more sensitive and less resilient than we may have been at some point in the past when most things didn't work out. And so everybody, in my experience, who has become really successful in a profession, a career, a whole lifestyle, who's afraid of stepping out and trying new things and taking new risks, I just want you to know it's totally normal. That's exactly the way it's supposed to be, but start doing it anyway. Take more little risks in life. Go over and talk to somebody that's just standing in line and ask them a question, or go online and make a video and put yourself out there and, start teaching what or start a little business or a side hustle and try it. It's okay to fail. In fact, it's okay to fail a lot, because you will learn so fast. And then once you kind of get over the initial things not working out and you kind of develop a little bit of a thicker skin, that's when the miracles really start happening, actually.
Yeah, it's the willingness to try things and fail. It's the willingness
Exactly.
to not be attached to that exact, outcome, that this has to work this way, or my whole sense of myself and well-being is dependent upon that. So it's taking that away.
Exactly.
And to me, your sense of, I come in and I learn new things. It's coming to life with curiosity, and
Yeah.
that, rather than fear, it's the curiosity. And so, I know that you have helped, you've built many multiple 7-figure coaching businesses. You've trained thousands of coaches around the world. What
Yeah.
would you say is your number one advice to helping coaches build their businesses?
Yeah. Okay. So first is my secret to success, in a way. Sometimes I like to say is I'm willing to fail on stage,
Mm.
right? So I'm just willing to try lots of stuff. So first, take the mindset that you're just going to get out there and try some new things. Have fun. Give yourself permission to experiment. But then, to answer your question a little more directly, my overall strategy, the thing that has led to the most success in life for me, is when I learn something, I go and I teach the thing, right? I
Mhm.
teach or I coach around that particular thing. And the reason why is when you coach and you teach, you learn the thing that you already know at a higher level. You learn it in a whole different way. You see it completely differently. It's kind of like being a parent. When you parent a child, all of a sudden you see life. Life becomes a whole different thing because you can see it from out here. And so if you are either interested in becoming a coach, get out there and just start coaching people as soon as you possibly can. Call up everybody you know. I mean, let's say that you're good at balancing your checkbook, for example, and you realize oh, I'm good at balancing my checkbook, and most people aren't. Call up everybody you know and say, hey, I'm going to do checkbook balancing coaching. Who do you know that can't figure their checkbook out? And your friends will tell you, oh, this, whatever, my sister, she needs, great, introduce me. And then just start doing it, start helping people. And number one, your self-esteem is going to go way up, because socially you're going to be helping people, you're going to be connecting with people, you're going to be learning what you know so much better. And then I recommend doing it as a business. And if you're already a coach, then really get out there and start coaching on things that are really high value for people. One of the mistakes that I see coaches make so many coaches come to our programs, they show up and they say, I've been coaching people, but people aren't paying me very well. And I say, okay, well, are you intentionally targeting and seeking out clients who are affluent and people who could afford to pay you what you'd like to be paid? And they say, I've never thought of that. Most of them have literally never thought of that.
Yeah.
What they do is they're attracted to people who are most in need. And so if you're already a coach and you're not succeeding at the level that you'd like to succeed, start asking, who is a very, very successful person who I could coach and help get to the next level of success? And then this will pave the way for so many other things, I think, for you.
Mm-hmm. Well, I love that you said that you find that you learn something, and the best way to learn it even more is to go teach it. The
Exactly.
whole reason that I have taught happiness and living in the miracle zone is that it's what I wanted. I learned how to be happy. I wasn't happy. I learned how to be happy. It worked. I wrote a book on it. I teach it to people, and I'm a whole lot happier now that I've had that. Now that I've spent my life focusing on that, and also now living a miraculous life. My I live more and more miraculous life every day, and I think a lot of it is because I share that with people. So I can't wait to at some point soon have you and Annie both on together so we can talk about your relationships and living a miraculous life in your
That would be
relationship,
great.
because you
Yeah.
two are you are off the chart. But I want to before we close, I know you have a lot of ideas about miracles, and you said you don't normally talk about that subject, but you dove right into thinking about it. What else would you want to share with us in your perspective on living a miraculous life and living in the miracle zone?
Well, let's see. Okay, a couple of thoughts on this. Right, you probably have already talked about this with your group, but right, people who see themselves as being lucky are more successful in life.
Absolutely.
Literally, people who have a self-image, if you say, are you a lucky person? The people who say yes, they're more successful than others. And in the experiments, what they find is that some people are moving through life and they're looking for where they're getting lucky. And what some people are doing is looking for where they're getting screwed, like
Yes.
looking for where things are unfair. And the paradox is that there's kind of an infinite horizon for both out there. You know, like you can walk into the world and you can see as much of either if you want, just like you can see as much charity as you want in the world and as much evil, for example. Like it's just right there. I remember Stuart Wilde, who I read his stuff many years ago.
Oh, I did too. Stalking the Wild Pendulum.
Yeah, so you know
Yes.
Stuart Wilde. Okay.
Yeah.
And so I kind of came back to a couple of his little books and so forth. And, you know, he talks about things like, okay, go out and just intentionally start looking on the ground for money. And he said, if you just start looking, you're going to find it and there's going to be some money. And so if you see money, like you see a dime or a quarter or a penny or whatever, you pick it up. Why? Because number one, you realize, okay, I'm looking now and I'm getting luckier and I'm going to see it. And then you pick it up because you want to tell yourself, you want to tell the universe that when luck or when positive things come, I take advantage of them. Because what a lot of people do is they're walking around and they see money and they go, well, that's a penny. It's not even worth stopping to pick it up. But then what they're also doing is kind of telling themselves like, that's just quote unquote luck. It's not that I actually am a lucky person. So you want to go to work on that. And then one other thought that I had that came up when I was thinking about it as we're talking here too is that, right, Joseph Campbell, right, he's got this thing called the hero's journey, and everybody's heard of it by now. And 100 years ago, he went and traveled around the world and he visited all these different cultures and continents and things. And he read mythology and he started noticing, hey, wait a minute, these are cultures that have been separated by thousands of years. And yet somehow they've got these same stories, the same theme that's running through the hero's journey, running through the stories of the heroes. And so he put this all together and he wrote a book called A Hero with a Thousand Faces, and he called it The Hero's Journey. And what's interesting is, so there's several steps of it, right? And in the beginning, the hero hears the call to adventure, right? They hear the call, they get the call. And the first thing they do is refuse the call. And that, I don't ever hear people talking about this. I think that it's so important that most people, they get the call, you know, like you remember in the Matrix or whatever, when, you know, Neo gets the call from Morpheus on the phone. And Morpheus says, all right, now go outside on the ledge and climb around, you know, and he almost falls off the skyscraper and he gets too freaked out. He's too scared. So he goes back inside and he's like, I can't do it. So most of us do that. We actually get the call, but we refuse it. But then the next thing that happens is, you know, the supernatural aid, the voice from above some like higher level thing kicks our butt over the threshold into, right, into the adventure. So there's like a signal from the higher power in a way. So we could kind of be talking about the miracle zone here, or a call from Miracle Central.
Yes.
And so we
Yes.
have to listen for that. We have to
So
get that when the miracle's in front of us, we usually say, no, 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 don't need you right now. We actually refuse it. And that we need, so we got to be sensitive, when the call comes, we got to go on we got to go on the adventure.
do you remember a time when you got the call and you resisted it at first, and then you got some kind of a nudge, maybe from who knows where, that to actually then take the call?
I I have had this happen so much in my life. It's the human nature, with
Mm-hmm.
my health, for example. When I was younger, my father and his father had heart disease,
Mm-hmm.
and they both died young from it. And I even had doctors tell me when I was growing up, like, you have to watch this, you have to look at it. I've been pretty healthy my whole life, but I didn't really pay, careful attention to it. And I mean, I read the books, I knew all the stuff, and it took about 5 years ago. I went in and got a coronary calcium score that was pretty high, like pretty high, and it just like shocked me awake, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't really want to. I never really wanted to look.
Yeah.
That's one of
Yeah.
those
Yeah.
kind of gold
Yeah. Yeah.
standard tests,
Yeah.
And as soon as it happened, I realized, oh, this is one of those moments in my life. I already knew it.
Yeah.
I've already been kind of working on it half-assed, but I wasn't
Yeah. Yeah.
really paying attention. And so I said, this is it. I have to go do it. And so I went and did more research, talked to some more experts. And then I just changed how I like literally changed my lifestyle. I changed how I eat. I changed everything, got my exercise totally dialed, got my cholesterol way down, got rid of all of the things that, that lead to this. And, and I could tell you one after another of these stories, but yeah,
Well,
you
we're
need to
we're
get
glad
that.
you
Go
we're
ahead.
glad you listened to that call,
Thank you.
because we
Thank
want
you.
you around a lot longer. Well, Eben,
Yeah.
I could talk to you forever. You are an inspiration to me on living a life of openness, of curiosity, of learning, of looking for luck. I know that you
Yeah.
consider. I know that you see all the millions of blessings in your life all the time. I think we should all go on a luck experiment. Just that idea, looking for luck every day. So this has been fantastic. I want to let everybody know how they can find you. They can find you at ebenpagantraining.com, which we also have in the show notes, of course. And I know that you're launching your virtual coach program coming up along with your beautiful wife, Annie. And you've had nearly, I think, 5,000 people who've graduated from this training. It's a live training that helps ambitious people become successful coaches. Is there anything you want to share with us about that?
Well, I've taught a lot of things in my life. I've taught relationships and dating. I've taught how to grow and scale businesses. I've taught productivity, money, different things. But coaching is something that has just, it really has my heart. I love doing it more than any other thing that I've done before, because I get to bring everything to it. I get to bring all of the knowledge from these different areas. But I also love it because it really helps other people who are on the path to self-actualize. It's like when you graduate to being a coach in life, it is a developmental step. It's a growing up. And I love helping people do that. And also for a lot of coaches, they've been through multiple careers in their life. They're the kinds of people who are intellectually curious. Oftentimes they have degrees. A lot of the people coming through our programs have advanced degrees. And now they want to start a business or build a business or make a bigger contribution and teach in some way. And I just love teaching folks who want to do this and coaching them and helping them do it. And so, yeah, that's what Annie and I do right now. It's one of our things. And if that is ringing any bells, then come check it out. We have a bunch of great free resources and books that we give away and things that you can attend, and would love to meet you.
Well, I got to say, I have one of my big philosophies is that you learn from the people that inspire you and the people that have done it in big ways. And I got to tell you, nobody has created more success in this kind of a field than you have, Evan. And just hanging with you and being with you, I really appreciate who you are. You are such a deep thinker and feeler, and so much the real deal that I always look forward to getting to share time on this planet with you. So thank you for being with us. I always love to close our conversations with a quote, and today's quote is going to be from you, Evan. And the quote is, what's the difference between people who feel successful and people who have failed, who feel they failed? The answer is mindset. If you learn and grow from failure, suddenly it becomes a personal asset. And that's what we have spoken about earlier. And Evan, you rock. You totally rock.
Thank you. Very gracious. It was
Thank
great
you.
having this conversation, Marci.
Thank you. Thank you for being with us. And I want to thank everybody here for listening today and for joining us today. And if you're drawn to this conversation, know that it wasn't by accident. Something in you is resonating with this idea of living more fully in the miracle zone. So I hope that you're feeling uplifted and inspired and more aligned with the energy of miracles. And if this touched you in some way, please share it with someone you love. And don't forget to download your free gift from us, our ebook, Manifest a Life of Miracles, 4 Steps to Living in the Miracle Zone. You get that at themiraclezonebook.com. And remember that miracles aren't reserved for just a few people. They are meant for you. They are meant for all of us. So I'm sending you so much love. Until next time.